I'm Tommy Schnurmacher. Welcome to Chosen for What, a podcast where we explore the enduring legacy of the Holocaust and how its impact continues to shape future generations. Today's guest is Heidi Berger, the founder and president of the Foundation for Genocide Education. Heidi is an award-winning film producer and educator. Her journey into this work began with a very personal story, her late mother's experience as a Holocaust survivor. That story would eventually inspire Heidi to become a fierce advocate for genocide education after discovering that far too many students were graduating high school without even knowing what the word genocide meant. Heidi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Now, before we get into the incredible work you're doing with the foundation, I love to start by hearing about your mother. Can you tell us a bit about her and what she lived through during the Holocaust?
She was very young, and at the age of 17 or 17 and a half, she witnessed some horrible events. She witnessed her father and brother taken away from her and her family, never to see them again. She witnessed the rape and murder of her best friend, Sarah, who was her neighbor. And the worst of all is she witnessed the machine gunning of her mother while she and my father were hiding in an attic. Those were just three of the many other events that she was a witness to. And all this time she was hiding and running in forests, cellars, and barns with my dad.
I remember interviewing your mother, and I asked her about her story, and she told me what you just said. She recounted the story. And I thought to myself, how is this woman alive in my studio, talking with a smile on her face, and being so upbeat? It was just mind-boggling to me. And I thought for sure, having gone through this kind of trauma, the level of how she would raise her children would be like warped beyond belief. And what she would do, obviously, is protect her children, overprotect them, and never let them out of the house. Then I discovered I was 100% wrong about this. I want you to tell me about how your mother brought you and your siblings up.
So I have two brothers, older brothers, both born in Europe, and myself born here in Canada. And she was open with my father about telling us their stories at the right age, but her attitude was of strength and of resilience and of compassion. So it was a known thing that you get up in the morning and you approach life with a positive attitude, and you give back to the community, and you have to appreciate every single day. And then she also had the attitude of not being overprotective, because I know from your history that your mother was extremely overprotective with you. It was just the opposite with us. She sent my brothers away at 15 years old to be a waiter in Bermuda, another one to at 16 to be a lumberjack in British Columbia. She even told me, if you want to go visit your Uncle Louis in New York City, you could take a bus at 15 and go visit him. It was, and this gave us this fierce independence,
right,
and this idea and way of life that when we want something, when we want to be successful, we can do it and we can achieve it as long as we work hard. And this is what she instilled in my brothers and myself.
It's interesting. My mother told me that I could do anything as well, but she wanted me to accompany me to what I was going to do that I could do independently, but she'd have to be there just to make sure everything was okay. Now,
right. Yeah.
In 2009, you created a 50-minute interactive video chronicling her story. What inspired you to bring her experience to life in that format?
Because my mother wrote a book called Witness to Horror, and she started going into schools to talk about genocide, not only the Holocaust, but about genocide in general and her story, and trying to teach them about what happened and trying to learn the lessons, trying to teach them the lessons of what happened. Like, don't forget, my mother came here. She was very young. She went back to Concordia and got a teaching degree when she was 54 years old. She started teaching English as a second language. She spoke 8 languages like most Europeans, and she started teaching English to Russian immigrant children. And then when my son was in high school and started asking her stories, more details, and he persuaded her to write this book. So she had this book, and she said, okay, so now I've written this book, I'm going into high schools to talk about it. So when she used to ask me to go see her speak in a school because she wanted me to see the reaction of the students. She said, you won't believe these students have never heard about it. They don't know anything about it. And they were very welcoming to her, and they adored her, and they wanted to see her again. And she had this warmth that was very contagious. And I went to see one of her presentations, and I said, oh my, this story has to be told. And this is what started me going on to the idea as my mom was getting older and older, that got me to the idea that that I should be going into schools and continuing her story.
Well,
And was, yeah.
she must be very proud of the incredible job that you're doing. And I think that every one of those kids, I mean, they're obviously older now, every one of those kids who attended her lecture, must have been profoundly moved by it and profoundly changed by it, as was I. Like, after I interviewed her, it literally changed my life, my attitude about a lot of things. She was a very, very powerful storyteller because it was coming from the heart. It was coming with such passion. Now, Heidi, you've said that one of the things that shocked you the most was how many students and even teachers, for that matter, have never heard they'd never heard the word genocide. They didn't know about the Holocaust. How did that realization shape what came next for you?
So I was at a school in Chateauguay doing my presentation, which is an interactive presentation. I show clips of my mother speaking. I'm a former film producer, so I knew what to do. Clips of my mom speaking, and then I speak. We giving the history of the war and a little bit of the history, explaining what genocide is. Then a teacher at Chateauguay came up to me and said to me, you have to do something about this. Our kids, our students are graduating from high school not knowing what the word genocide means, not understanding what the word is, not knowing enough about the Holocaust. He was telling me some teachers, they read Anne Frank, that's it, that's their lesson on the Holocaust, which obviously isn't enough. They have to understand the steps leading to genocide. They have to understand the consequences of hate and intolerance. And that's what sort of gave me the idea. Like, remember where I'm coming from. My mother said I could do anything I want as long as I work hard. I can achieve anything. So that's what gave me the idea to start the foundation. And I surrounded myself with some very good people, including the Armenians and other groups. And I went knocking on the Minister of Education's door and persisted. It took a while.
Let's say that you're knocking. I remember when you were calling me at CJD, your knocking was very loud and persistent. You wouldn't take no for an answer, and I can see where it came from. Now, for people who aren't familiar with the foundation, what exactly does the Foundation for Genocide Education do?
We do a variety of things, and we've grown a lot. But basically, we collaborated with the Minister of Education. We're talking now of 4 ministers of education because I started way back in 2014 knocking on their door. So we've had a few of them, but I have to say they've all been quite cooperative, except for the first one, but they've all been quite cooperative. We developed a guide in collaboration with the Minister of Education and advice from the Holocaust Museum on 9 recognized UN genocides. And what the researchers and writers did, it's a guide for teachers on how to teach these 9 genocides. We provided the video testimonials from each genocide, and it's almost, we want to make it easy for teachers on how to teach it. And we couldn't just limit ourselves to the Holocaust. That's not right. Because, when I started hearing the Rwandan stories and the Armenian stories, of which I knew myself very little about, I said, no, the right thing to do is to present these 9 genocides. And it's almost on a silver platter for the teachers. This guide makes it very easy for them to be able to understand the subject and teach it themselves. As well, we have teacher training that we do with teachers that would like more training. And we also send presenters into schools. We have Rwandan presenters. We even have First Nations, because First Nations is in this guide. And of course, we have first generation, second generation, and we're trying to get third generation survivors of the Holocaust to go into schools. And it's all done the same way, interactive presentations based on video testimonial from their parent, grandparent, or themselves.
Now, can you give us a sense of what a typical school presentation or what a program would look like?
So, first of all, the teachers are given some notes beforehand, because we have to assume maybe the teacher hasn't had the time to educate themselves on it. Some, yes, some are amazing. Some need the extra help. So we send them some notes beforehand on what to bring up with their students beforehand. And then we come in and we have put together edited video testimonial and using photos as well from this person's relatives past, their mother, their father, in the First Nations, it's their great grandfather, grandmother, and so we've edited it, and the presenter starts off with why they should be learning this, why it's so important that they understand their history. And of course, it goes into understanding what racism is, what intolerance is. In the case of Holocaust presenters, we explain what anti-Semitism is, especially given the current events. We go into it in a little bit more detail now. And so the person starts to speak, and then the parent speaks on video, and it goes back and forth. And then in the end, we talk again about why it's important that they, listening to this, understand it, and that they are there to fight it. They have to fight it. The fight begins in the classroom.
Chosen for What is brought to you by the Foundation for Genocide Education. To learn more or to make a donation, head to gened.org. You'll find the link in the show notes. And now, back to the podcast.
Now, you've spoken to high school students, you've spoken to university students, you've spoken to various community organizations in Canada, in the U.S., you've done it in English, you've done it in French. Give me a sample of some of the reactions that you've gotten. Like, what stood out for you of what students said or commented to you afterwards?
One is, you must be very brave to be talking about this. a lot of hugging, a lot of appreciation. Very rarely do I ever get a negative comment. It's always, um, tell me more. We'd like to hear more, especially what was it like being brought up with parents like that.
Right.
A tremendous amount of appreciation for having told them the story and having explained it to them. And I think one of the most, the best, one of my most memorable events was when I had in the classroom the child of one of my mother's students. And they went home and told their mother about it and was, oh my God, that's Anne Kasimirski's daughter. It was mind boggling to me that this could have happened. But it's a lot of appreciation, curiosity. Um, I I feel that we really make a difference. We really do in their lives. To me, that is extremely important.
Okay, we talked about what your mother did, about how she brought you up. Now tell me about you, how you bring up your children. What do you notice that you do differently, or you do because of being a child of, being second gen and being a child of a Holocaust survivor?
I think I do exactly what my mother has done. Exactly. It's the same positive attitude towards life, working hard, education, achievement, um, giving back to the community. I think I've just passed on exactly what my mother and father did for us. And what's curious is that I think my son, who has a 16-year-old daughter, I mean, I see my 16-year-old daughter who you've interviewed, and it's the same. She has this positive attitude and she wants to accomplish things and succeed. And it's like passed down through the
It
generations.
is, and she's as eloquent as you are. Your granddaughter is as eloquent as you are, and you're as eloquent as your mom. And I'm lucky to have interviewed to have actually interviewed the three generations. Now, why you? Why did you? Why did you take it upon yourself to start the foundation?
First of all, I'm not the only sibling in my family that has done something. My brother Seymour lives in Hawaii. He's done a tremendous amount for Holocaust education. He speaks to the army there, to several thousand army personnel every year. He started the Simon Wiesenthal bus, the Tour of Humanity bus. So I'm not the only sibling that does something. Um, and I forgot your question. Sorry.
We're talking about why did you take it upon yourself to start the foundation?
I think it was because my mother was sick at that point. She had cancer. And I mean, this is a few months before she died. She took a train to Abitsimi or somewhere up in the north by herself to give a presentation.
And
And I said, Ma, pardon?
how old was she at that time?
85.
So 85, and she's alone on the train. She's going to Abitibi to do a presentation.
Yeah. And I said, Ma, don't go. No, I have to do this. And then it was definitely witnessing the effect that I saw that she had on the students. And that teacher, as I mentioned in Chateauguay, that said to me, you have to do something. That was the spark. That really was.
Now, look, your mom was very strong. You're very strong. Right now, 2025, what's going on, the unbelievable tsunami of anti-Semitism washing over the entire world, in Europe, across North America. How do you react to it? How do you deal with it?
My heart's broken in two. It hurts. Especially, my parents came to Saint Agathe, which is a small town north of Montreal, was a French Canadian and English town. After the war, that's where they settled because that's the only place my father could find a job. And I was witness to a tremendous amount of anti-Semitism. the signs on a hotel saying no dogs allowed, no Jews allowed on the same sign. My brother's getting beaten up for being Jewish. My mother and father who couldn't buy a house because they were Jewish. So my mother put on a cross and pretended she wasn't Jewish to buy their first home. My father, who was so afraid of the anti-Semitism that he was witnessing in this town of Senegal, that one of his patients was the local Catholic priest, he had that priest make me a Catholic birth certificate. So I've been the witness of a lot of anti-Semitism growing up. But it sort of was subdued after. It was sort of under, you didn't you didn't feel it as much. I always knew it was there. But then after October, I honestly, sometimes I ask myself, what would my mother be feeling if she saw this today? And it's horrible to say, but I'm relieved that she's not here to see it after what she's been through. But for me personally, I'm horrified by it. I'm horrified by the fact that there's people that aren't saying anything. That, there's not enough comeback from our government fighting it. It's not what you say, it's not what you believe, it's what you do. And when I see governments not doing anything about it, this is crushing to me.
Doing this podcast and interviewing a number of people for it, I'm horrified at how many of the interviewees, including yourself, including myself, people who adored, practically worshipped their parents, all saying things, I'm relieved they're not here to see this. We would never have imagined we'd ever say that sentence for anything, that we'd be relieved they're not here. We'd want them here for forever. And I think that speaks to the level of hatred that there is.
I agree.
Why do you think that genocide education is so critical now?
It's more critical now than ever because of what's going on. Because genocide education will teach the students what is racial what is racism, what is racial intolerance, and in the case of our Holocaust presentations, to explain what is anti-Semitism and give them examples from pre-war of where it started and why it's still here and what we're facing against. So I think it's critical that students know about it, and it's mainly to fight not only anti-Semitism but all forms of hate and racism and intolerance.
What kind of change would you like to see in the Canadian or Quebec education system? What kind of change would you like to see when it comes to the subject of genocide?
We've been fighting this one too. We would like it to be mandatory, not to make it mandatory. Holocaust and genocide education mandatory in high schools, that they have to learn about it properly, not by just reading a book of Anne Frank, but to learn about it properly. I think in these times, this is very, very important and vital. Really is. That's our next fight with the Ministry of Education. We've been working on that for a while. They published the guide, and they did a great job of that by having a guide. We want this now made mandatory in high schools here and all across Canada.
And how is that fight going?
I'll let you know in another few weeks.
Thank you very much. An absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, not only for joining us for today, but thank you for the work you're doing to ensure that these stories are never forgotten. If you want to support the Foundation for Genocide Education, you want to learn more about their mission, we included a link in the show notes. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, subscribe, share it with someone. who should hear it. For the Foundation for Genocide Education, I'm Tommy Schnurmacher. Until next time.